Here's an experiment for you. Take passionate experts in human resource technology. Invite cross-industry experts from inside and outside HR. Mix in what's happening in people analytics today. Give them the technology to connect. Hit record. Pour their discussions into a beaker. Mix thoroughly. And voila, you get the HR Data Labs podcast, where we explore the impact of data and analytics to your business. We may get passionate and even irreverent, but count on each episode challenging and enhancing your understanding of the way people data can be used to solve real-world problems. Now, here's your host, David Turetsky.
Hello and welcome to the HR Data Labs podcast. I'm your host, David Turetsky. Like always, we try and find you fascinating people inside and outside the world of HR to give you the latest on what's happening in HR data, analytics, and HR technology. Today, Dwight and I have the pleasure of talking to Jordan Morrow, who is actually known as the Godfather of Data Literacy. Hey, Jordan, how are you?
Doing very well. How are you two doing?
Very great.
Good.
Dwight, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. Getting to the end of the day, I get to talk with Jordan. I get to talk with you. What more can a guy ask for?
I don't know. Maybe a coffee or an alcoholic beverage of your choice.
Yeah, or both.
Or both. Jordan, why don't you give us a little bit of your background? You got a great one.
Oh, absolutely. I hate to self-promote, but I guess I can do that. No, I guess a nickname, I didn't realize this, so I'll preface that I have in the industry as the Godfather of Data Literacy. And I didn't realize that until one time I was in a meeting with one of the kind of pioneers of that program too, in that world. And she's like, you know what your nickname is, right? And I said, no. And she's like, well, it's the Godfather of Data Literacy. That's what you're known as out there. I'm like, someone else gave me the nickname Chief Nerd Officer. I actually like that one better.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah,
but I'm as nerdy as they come. I love data analytics. I was lucky enough that I had one of the first pioneering ideas and thoughts around data literacy, built the world's first program around it from what I know, and wrote the book literally on it. But I love data, statistics, analytics. When I'm in my own time, I've got 5 kids, so a very busy house. 5 kids, 2 dogs, and 1 bunny. So it's, one heck of a busy mess. I live in the mountains in Utah. I'm an ultra marathon runner. And so, I have a lot of fun. Life is good.
Outstanding.
Man, I bet you the bunny is the chief of the household, isn't it?
The bunny? No, unfortunately, the bunny gets neglected. Like, I don't know why. It's a cute bunny. We named him after Walt Disney's first cartoon character, which was Oswald the Rabbit. And, but no, I think I'm about the only one who says hi to him every day and pays attention.
I'm sure the dogs want to say hi to him.
The golden retriever that I have does not mind it. It's just like, it's just a little animal running around. But my puppy, who's 75-pound puppy at 8 months old or whatever, she likes to play rough with it. So we keep those two apart.
Yeah. My pug boxer mix would love that bunny rabbit.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you know Jordan, one fun thing you may not know is that he is a diehard Chicago Cubs fan. How did that happen?
Well, my golden retriever that we're talking about is named Wrigley after Wrigley Field. So I actually grew up for a while north of Chicago when I was a young kid. So my first memories really of any sports that I could think of are Cubs baseball, because in the summers there, when you're out of school, WGN always had the Cubbies, not the White Sox. And we were Northsiders, and my dad would take me to, or I think my very first sporting event ever was really, I believe it was a Cubs game. So all those things became, the Cubs are a religion to me, as it is for a lot of Cubs fans. And I told my wife when we were engaged or early married, if the Cubs ever make the World Series, I'll mortgage my house to get there. I didn't have to do that, thankfully, but my wife bought my plane tickets back in 2016 to go out to Chicago during the series. So yeah, she's a good one.
That's true love, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Hold on to that one.
Yes. So our topic for today, as you can quite imagine, will be around data literacy, but we're going to be talking about the human element of data and analytics.
I think the human element is a fascinating part of data and analytics. We always think of data and analytics as being these technology and statistics and coding and database and all these things, when in reality, without the human element, how much of that is going to do anything for you? And I get questions from people who don't have a background in this space, which is where data literacy really comes into play. And they'll ask, do I have a part in this? Absolutely. Everyone has a part, but we have to learn how we as humans interact with the data to make it effective.
So our first question, Jordan, would be, what are the biggest roadblocks to data and analytical success?
Hi, I'm Carmen Hudson. I'm the host of the Recruiting Book Club, and we're starting our second season. I'm so excited to bring to you another set of guests of recruiters who have written books. We are excited to have some very special guests this season. We've got Shally, we've got Craig Fisher, James Ellis, and quite a few other people that we're going to bring on board to tell us about what they wrote, why they wrote it, and maybe we'll veer off into a conversation about recruiting on all types of topics and subjects that happen in our industry. So I hope you can join us. I'm excited.
Oh, see, this question is probably been the mainstay question that I get or I'm asked more than any other. And I think a lot of times we think data quality, data governance, data trust, all these things. But the reality is it's culture. Is the culture of the organization ready to absorb, to use, and to effectively consume data? Because if people, and that boils down to data literacy, if people are not confident and comfortable using data, why would they ever adopt the tools that companies invest in? Why would they ever do anything if they're not confident and comfortable using data? A lot of times tools and technology get blamed for low data and analytic adoption, but it's people just aren't comfortable using it. So that roadblock is the culture, are the beliefs, the traditions, the experience, the history of the company. Is it in a position for the organization to succeed with data? If it isn't, you're going to run into some massive issues. You can invest all this money, but that's not going to magically make people want to use data.
Well, hasn't it been the problem that we just assume that the data is okay? I mean, one of the things that we tend to fall into, the problem in HR is we tend to just believe that when we run a headcount report and we share it with people, especially managers, that they're just going to consume it and say, oh yeah, this looks right. When in fact, this is the first time they're seeing it and it's crap, and they just get all turned off by the end result, even though they actually are part owners of what's wrong with the data in the first place. Yeah,
you're spot on. When you think about what you're describing, is a lot of times I hear this from people. In fact, my brother, who is very well versed in statistics, does it in his job one time. He said, the first time I didn't trust data. I think we need to take a step back. It's not the data you don't trust. Data is just information. It's the misuse, the human element misusing the data that causes problems. Or in some cases, it's the lack of data literacy means that a person won't share data because they don't know if they can. They don't know what they can use. They don't know what they can share. They don't know what clean data is. And the final one, and this one stems all the way back to going back to my 5 children. How many questions a day do you think I get? Well, when we become adults, we stop questioning things. So someone puts data in front of you, you're just like, well, that's the information to move on. And then lo and behold, a month later, you find out it was wrong. And then there's a distrust there. Sure. And so all these things, again, I think a lot of it boils right down to your confidence with using it. Are you comfortable using it and questioning it and asking questions? If you can, then that's a powerful thing. But if you can't, that distrust and this misuse, and I can't share here, I can share here, becomes an issue for organizations.
You know, it's interesting because two pieces come to mind for me. Number one, every time I tell somebody what I do, the fact that I'm in analytics and I work with numbers, instantly their eyes glaze over. And instantly their visceral reaction is, I don't understand numbers. And a lot of people think of themselves as not understanding numbers, when in reality, a lot of them can. And I think it surprises them. The other piece that kind of gets to what you're talking about with the data literacy, you and I were talking about this before the show, and you've talked about it on podcast. And I don't mean to get political here. This is not meant to be a political statement. But the COVID numbers from the outset, the way that they've been reported, and I think that this plays out in organizations over and over and over again. I've always railed against the fact that the main statistic is the raw number of cases and the raw number of deaths. And there's not that context. And to your point, people don't question the data. Some people do, but they don't question the data, and they don't question it in the sense of, give me context to this. What do these raw numbers mean? Give me more context. What's the numbers per 100,000 population? What's the positivity rate? Those kinds of things. Number one, because people oftentimes think of themselves as being uncomfortable with data. And the fact that, like you said, as they get to be adults, they quit questioning the data, they start to fall into those traps. And I think that it tends to sort of have a snowball effect in terms of the way that people look at data and question it.
Spot on. And this, I agree with you. The first thing to address here is I agree. I think people are more data literate than they understand, right? And that's, did you have to buy a home? Do you watch the gauge on your car meter that tells you you're out of gas? I mean, those are confidence with numeracy and things like that. But then there's this flip side of it, of a trusting in people who are presenting data. Like you bring up the COVID numbers. And as we discussed, early on in the pandemic, I was asked many times if I would speak about it or write about it or however they wanted me to address it, and I stayed away. And that's because of how political it became on basically every single side of the political aisle, because there's forgetting to put context in the data, and then there's purposely keeping context out. And those sort of things happen all the time. And so that's where that distrust comes into play. And one of the things you're describing is data storytelling, which is a part of data literacy, if you will, where are you able to communicate effectively? But it's two sides of a coin. Are you able to understand confidently what someone is sharing with you?
Right, exactly.
And because we always think of the person communicating the data, you yourself have to be confident enough to understand what is being presented to you so you can question it properly, so you can do things properly with it. That's tough for people because they're not used to that. That's that bubble side that has to burst a little bit.
Yeah. But I also think there's the assumption that they understand the processes that went into collecting the data and that they have confidence in those processes. So when we talk about HR analytics and the processes that were never meant to be used as measurements, whether it's an HRIS or an HCM system or a payroll system or whatever, those were never meant as headcount or turnover or other type of measurement devices. They were meant to pay people, to make sure people were onboarded correctly, and to make sure people were offboarded correctly. And that's it. And when we start making assumptions, and we know about making assumptions, right? That's where we start to then lose that confidence, especially when we do know that a lot of that data is actually garbage and counted incorrectly.
Yeah, my favorite law in statistics is Goodhart's law. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it basically says when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to become a good measure. In this case, you were making non-measurements a measurement, and then they became targets. There's a documentary out there, I don't need to name it, that basically says we make things important because they can be measured versus measuring the important things. This goes all the way back. Data literacy is not just an analyst type thing. It goes to executives who are putting things out there and sharing things and making decisions that, to your point, can have I don't want to say drastic because that sounds dramatic, but in a way, a drastic effect on how decisions are made in a company. That Goodhart's law is my favorite. The example, and whether it's true or not, is there's a story in India, there was a rat problem, and they said, for every rat tail you bring us, we'll pay you. Well, that created a whole new industry of entrepreneurs who are going to breed rats. Because so you think about it that way, that's an example or a story. It could be used anywhere, not just India, anywhere. But this happened when the United Nations said, we will give carbon credits to countries who are disposing of these gases or however they did it. Guess what that produced? Countries started producing that gas so they could get carbon credits. When the UN found out, they killed the program or whatever. And when the program was killed, what do you think those countries are going to do with that gas? They're just like, I guess we'll just release it. So you had an adverse effect because the measurement of disposing gases became a target and this and that. And the companies fall into this trap all the time when they make KPIs and things like that.
Yeah.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking subscribe. This podcast is made possible by Salary.com. Now, back to the show.
So that brings us up to topic number 2, which is then how can an organization or individual succeed understanding data literacy? How can they educate themselves on it?
Like the first and foremost, I think I get asked questions along this, like, do I need to go back to school for statistics or something like, no, I just want you to be curious. I want you to ask more questions, right? I had an old colleague, a friend who called it the 5 whys. Ask why 5 times. You might finally get to the real reason someone wants something, right? If I go back to my kids, they're always asking questions because there's a natural curiosity. But then when we become adults, we graduate college, we go into a job, we're told what to do, curiosity gone. And I think that's detrimental. And so I think the first thing to do is learn to start asking questions. Be creative. I call these the 3 C's of data literacy. Be creative. Finally, learn to critically think. Notice not one of those is a technical thing. It's learning how to do things. Once you start to establish those, then find data and analytics is a massive, massive area. Find something that interests you and dive into it. If you want to build data visualizations, study it. If you want to get really good at data-driven decision making, study it. Don't just go into something because you think you need to, because I call it the New Year's resolution syndrome, right? Everyone wants to lose weight, it seems. They start running for 3 weeks and then they give up. Why? Because they hate running. You know, it's not, find a workout regime that you are interested in. Do the same thing with data. Find something that interests you, jump into it, learn more, and then watch your knowledge expand.
Unfortunately, though, we live in a world where there are so many complications at work and at home, and people say, I'll get to it, and then never do. And they always look for the easy way out or the quickest path to get there. Do you suggest, and of course we'll put this in the show notes, are there TED Talks? Are there Coursera courses? Are there places that they can go to actually get more literate?
Absolutely. So first off, and this was not so I could promote my book, but I literally wrote the book on data literacy called Be Data Literate, the data literacy skills that everyone needs to succeed. But I built
which we will have the link in the show notes, by the way.
Are we going to have a coupon code for Amazon too? Is that okay?
Yeah, I can get coupons and stuff like that. Absolutely. But and if anyone wants a signed copy, just message. But I built the world's first program. And in building that first program, now it's not the way it was in that the courses and content are the same, but when I built it, I gave it away for free, which was a very different mindset at the time. I've transitioned from that company to Pluralsight, which is an online tech and data skill democratization platform. You can get courses there. But the other thing I suggest to people is find someone who knows something about this and let them mentor you. Right. When I built all this from the ground up, I didn't really have a mentor. I got hired and basically was given free reign to build data literacy how I wanted, and it morphed, right? Which was great. I built it from the ground up. I learned trends. I traveled the world. But now I watch one of my friends. He's a leader in data strategy and what he's doing. And he comes to me for mentoring and bouncing ideas. I get a lot of college kids asking me to mentor them. Reach out to me. I'm happy to connect with people and help. But it's find someone who knows the field, what they're doing and things like that. David, Dwight, you too, and reach out to them and say, hey, I'm trying to start in this. Can you help me?
I think all too often what I've heard companies do is they say, we've got a lot of data. We don't know what to do with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this gigantic data lake, put a star schema on it, and then we're just going to go attack it. They're a pirate ship and they're going to find the booty.
And they expect it to work miracles.
Right.
Absolutely.
This data lake is going to be our savior.
And so they don't need to learn. They just need to attack instead. And can you kind of give us the pros and cons of attacking a problem without learning about it first?
Oh man, I don't see any pros to that. But I use an analogy like this with let's talk about data lakes, and this idea was a good idea. But imagine you're a fisherman. Do you go to a lake, put your arms out, and hope the fish jumps out of the lake into your arms?
If you're a bad fisher.
If you're a bad fisher person, yes. All these data lakes, the premise of the data lake is a good idea. Throw all your data into one spot. But we keep coming back to data literacy. If people don't know how to get information out of it correctly, you run into problems. In fact, what was the prediction by Gartner? 90% of data lakes were going to fail, right? Mm-hmm. Great idea conceptually, horrible in practice. And a lot of it, in my opinion, comes down to, are the end users of that data lake, when it is built correctly, able to do things right? So instead of just attack a problem, there's methodologies to actually using data to solve a problem. It's a tool, it's an enabler. It's not everything. You're going to have personal experience, which is your human impact. You're going to have the tools and technology. You're going to have the data itself. You're going to have questions you want to answer. That's a methodology. My friend Kevin Hannigan designed a data-informed decision-making methodology where it's, do you know how to ask the question, acquire the right data? Can you apply your human element to it? Don't just attack things. Study, learn, critically think, etc. that it might seem like that's going to take you more time, but that will actually save you time, or should save you time in the end, because you didn't attack it and then fail miserably. You methodically went into it, learned, etc.
And spent a lot of money and spent a lot of time and wasted a lot of it, and then get yelled at by executives.
And in what I've seen is that people don't, and this gets back to your theme, that people don't know the business questions to ask. Yeah. And so they do the data lake, and then to start to extract that data, they don't, as you said, they attack it. They aren't strategic about it. And, they don't fight the battles. They try to win the war all at once. Yep. And, you see it over and over and over again, whether it's a data lake or an HCM or whatever system you're pulling data from and developing analytics. The business question is the most often forgot piece of things.
Yep, absolutely.
So that transitioned us to the third question of the podcast, which is, what does it actually mean to be data-driven, and how does an organization get there?
Yeah, it's a great question, because that, during the COVID pandemic, so the last 18 months or so, the number one topic I would say that I saw was, we want to be data-driven. In fact, a little story behind this is, before the pandemic, before shutdowns, before all of that, I was on the road a lot, 1 to 4 times a month, all over the world. And then I'm thinking, man, things are shutting down. There's no travel, all these things. And I thought my calendar was going to open up. No, the opposite happened. It got busier, because I had companies like coming out of the woodwork, like, I think finally realizing, we thought we were invested to be data-driven. We're not. And so I think that stipulation, we think we're data-driven, is actually, we talked about this, if being ignorant is not necessarily a good thing, but being ignorant to the fact that you're ignorant is bad. And so these companies coming out, trying to figure things out, trying to understand things, all of these things became this too big, or I don't know how to describe it. I define it. It's just this nebulous of all this. The reality is, being data-driven is just using data to support your business processes. That's what being data-driven means. It's, are you using data, combining it with your human experience, combining it with diverse voices, combining it with so many different things to improve your operations and make a decision? That's being data-driven. But we get so enamored by tools and technologies and visualization and statistics that we lose sight that it might be simple. It might be something simple that we need to do, but we're spending all this money. We want to use all this money. And when you spend money and use all this money, there's this kind of mindset that, oh, we spent money on this, we have to use it, when in the long run, it was the wrong decision. So just cut your ties and go.
Mm-hmm. Go back to the whys question you were asking before.
Yep.
Can you investigate your data and ask a bunch of whys? We're losing people in this location. Why? Well, the data doesn't know. Okay. Well, we're stuck there. Then we need to figure out, is there a different way in which we can collect the data in order to be able to answer the question? And so, too often HR analytics gets stuck in the morass of, what am I collecting? How am I collecting it? And how am I visualizing it? Well, stop worrying about the visualization and start asking those business questions that get you to where you need to go, and ask those whys, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, to your point, and it all starts with that. Like I commonly say, I want to create this world of data skeptics, not data cynics. The world is doing a good enough job to create data cynicism. Sure. Mm-hmm. Data skepticism is just asking questions of things. That's it. Like to me, the key to data literacy, data analytics, all of that is curiosity. And that's the starting point. And being able to communicate and talk to and have all these things is a good thing, because it then enables you to find those who are technical. You don't have to be technical. You don't have to be a data scientist, but you should know them and you should be able to communicate with them. And that's all these data literacy, the soft skills, and all of that.
Well, you should know the scientific method, right? You should be able to ask a question, see if you have a hypothesis around something, and then be able to critically challenge that based on the observations you're making in what data comes back and shows you, right?
Absolutely. It's scientifically thinking. That's data science, right? The term data scientist has been muddied over time. But that's data science, is applying the scientific method to data. And it's just using that and questioning and doing. It's exciting because then you understand when you find insight and can make a decision off it. Or when something has a 90% success rate, and unfortunately you hit one of the 10 times it doesn't work, but you learn from it. And that's a mindset, because like, think about 90% of the time it works. People are so beholden to that. They jump at it. They don't understand it's a probability. I mean, this is how data and analytics works. It's a holistic process that over time you succeed with. It's not a one size fits all. It's not an easy button. It doesn't work that way.
There is no easy button? Come on. Staples said there was.
Well, and so often there's a delicate balance. You talked about the data trust piece of things and the trusting of the data. From an analyst perspective, oftentimes when I present data, the team will be questioning it. And there's this delicate balance between questioning out of curiosity versus basically trying to bash the data. At least that's the way that it can feel when you're presenting. You feel like you're getting your head chopped off. But I think data literacy is finding that happy medium of let's be curious, let's ask the right questions, let's ask them in the right way, and in the spirit of developing context with the data. And it's too easy. It's too easy from an analyst perspective, or anybody who has ever had to present data to somebody, to immediately feel attacked just because that actually has happened in the past.
Dwight, I don't know if you've ever presented a headcount report in front of a CFO before, but I've gotten my head chewed off a number of times, and it grew back because the CFO would say, HR numbers are wrong. We don't have this many people. And I have the numbers directly from the GL that tells me. Yeah. And I'd say, well, they're both right. And they'd say, you're crazy. They can't both be right. And I said, yes, because the basis of the data is different.
Yep.
And here's the HR one, here's the finance one, and here's why.
Right. Yeah, and I think that really highlights the fact that if you are the one presenting the data, you have to be able to understand the nuances of it, and you got to be able to take the arrows when people are shooting at you. It's the nature of the job. Don't take it personally.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's that mindset, that culture. Is the culture ready to accept that things always don't go the way you want, that you're going to be questioned and things like that? And a lot of cultures, they say we want to fail fast, but they don't. They don't want to question things. They don't want to hear that side of it. They just want, we're happy-go-lucky, this is good, let's do it. And that's not how it works.
Yeah.
I love failing fast. And the good news about this podcast is we have been doing it for over a year, and thank goodness it hasn't failed yet. So
no, but I do love your theme of the curiosity aspect, and always being curious and always asking those questions as a component of huge data literacy performance, if you will.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and it's that champions and brings it to light. Yeah.
So Jordan, we've talked about data literacy and how there's the human element to the data and the analytics. We've talked about some of the big roadblocks that get in the way of actually having analytical success. We've talked about ways in which organizations can actually, and individuals can actually learn by understanding what is data literacy and then hopefully then succeed using it. And then we've also talked about what does it mean to actually be data-driven as an organization, and what do they need to do? What do organizations actually need to do? Anything else you want to highlight before we close today?
I would just say to everybody, right, don't think you need to be a data scientist. I've said this for years. Not everyone needs to be a data scientist, but you do need to be more confident in your data literacy. So find something to study, find areas to improve, to get knowledge base on it, just do more. If you do that, you're starting your journey great. And it'll help your organization, and maybe more importantly, from a selfish perspective, your career.
That's outstanding. And also, please read Jordan's book.
Yes, you read my book.
Most definitely.
Definitely. Jordan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dwight, thank you as always.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Thank you, Jordan. We really appreciate it. And just so everybody knows, Jordan did a TED Talk on data literacy, and that's actually how I ended up meeting him because I heard his TED Talk and I pinged him and he graciously got back to me and said, yeah, I'd love to be on the podcast. So we're going to be posting the link to that and the other pieces we've talked about in the show notes too. But Jordan, really appreciate you being here. This is fascinating for me, and I think for our listeners too.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Cy Sims used to say, an educated consumer is our best customer, and we believe that too on the HR Data Labs podcast. So thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit subscribe, and if you know someone else who would feel interest in it, please send it their way. Thank you so much for listening again. Take care and stay safe.
That was the HR Data Labs podcast. If you liked the episode, please subscribe. And if you know anyone that might like to hear it, please send it their way. Thank you for joining us this week, and stay tuned for our next episode. Stay safe.